Hey, what's going on guys? Jared here, and today I'm going to show you how to add Parse login to your application with Swift and Xcode. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so first thing we need to do is actually open up Safari this time, and we're just going to head over to parse.com. And now that we're at parse.com, go to your apps, and we want to create a new application. This new application, we're just going to call this Parse login 2, as I just have a previous project, but you can really name this whatever you want. It's going to be your project. Create, and we're just going to head over to the quick start guide. Now we want to handle social, so just click on social, mobile, iOS, Swift, existing project, and then right down here it's going to tell you to download the SDK, so go ahead, do that. I already have it downloaded. Step 2 says to add the SDKs to your app, so we need to head over to Xcode, create a new Xcode project, and this will just be a single view application. Now of course they actually do have an application, so if you head back here you can say a new project, and you can just download the blank Xcode project. But I just think this is a bit confusing as it adds certain things into your project already that might be a bit confusing for some users. So now let's head over to our project again. This will be our product name. I'm just going to call this Parse Login 2. You don't have to match the name to what you have in Parse, but it's just going to be your product name. And of course our language will be set to Swift and our devices will be set to iPhone. All this is a universal concept. Click Next and Create. Now let's make this a bit bigger, and now we need to head back over to parse.com, go to the existing project, and then where it said download the SDK, we need to head over to our downloads, open up the Parse library, and inside of this Parse library, I'm just going to click and drag all of these into my project like so. And now that these are all dragged in, you'll see that it's kind of a disorganized mess over here, so let's go ahead, create a new group. So let's say a new group. And this new group, we'll just call this frameworks, as we're going to add quite a bit of frameworks that are going to work with our application. Now just click and drag all of these frameworks into your group folder. And then we need to stay in this first part right here and go to build phases. Now in build phases, you'll see there's a link binary with libraries. Now as you can see, I automatically put in our parse libraries inside of there. But we need to head back over, and there's actually quite a bit of libraries that you need to add. So right in here, you just want to add all of these libraries that you see. So accounts.framework, audio toolbox.framework, you can just go back over here, click the add button, and we'll just type all of that in. So add items, we need to go back over here, audio toolbox.framework, click next, and basically just put all of these frameworks that you see in here into your link binary with libraries, and then I'll be right back. Now I might as well mention what all these frameworks are for. So if you go into your Parse folders right here inside of these frameworks, all these frameworks are using the frameworks that we're adding. So we need to add these in order to use the Parse frameworks that we downloaded from the SDK. And finally libsqlite3.dlib. Add. And there you have it. We have all of our libraries or our frameworks inside of our link binary with libraries. Now let's go ahead and take all of these frameworks and sort them up a little bit better. So let's just take all of these and just put that right inside of our framework. We don't want to mess with the frameworks in any way, shape, or form, so we're just going to put them in the background. Now that we have all this done, let's head back over to our main.storyboard. Now inside of our main.storyboard, I'm just going to click on this main view that we have right here, and I'm going to change the background color of this just to be a nice gray color. It really doesn't matter. Your own app is going to have your own aesthetics, and I'm just basically trying to make my app usable. Now let's just click and drag a label onto our scene, and as you can see, it automatically turns the text white since it's on a black background, so that's good. Now let's take this label, let's click and drag it all the way out to the sides, go over to our assistant editor, center it, and then we take this label. I'm just going to put in username. And this is just letting us know that this text field that we are adding right now is going to hold the username. So now I'm just going to click and drag this text field all the way out to the edges like so. And now we can just copy and paste these two things that we created, our label and our text field, and paste it right down below. And we're going to change the label text just to password, like so. Now essentially this first part of our view controller is going to be your login and your sign up. So you also need an email address in order for this to work. So let's just copy and paste this. And then we can change the label text equal to email, like so. And then let's open up our assistant editor. So now let's just right click or control click and drag from our username text field that we created over to our viewcontroller.swift file. And this is just going to be an outlet, as we just want to name our username text field. So just type in username text field. You can of course call this whatever you want. Connect, and then right click or control click and drag from our password text field. I'm just going to call this password text field. Connect. And lastly, we need our email. So I'm going to right click or control click and drag from our email over to our viewcontroller.swift, and this will be email tf for text field. And now that that's all done, let's head back over to parse.com, and you'll see that there's a few more instructions down here. So we need to connect our app to Parse. So let's head over to our app-delegate.swift. I'm going to close up the assistant editor to avoid confusion. And let's just go back over to our connect your app to Parse, and we're just going to copy and paste this import Parse right next to import UI kit. And this is going to allow Parse to work with our application. Now right down here in our did finish launching with options, we need to add a few more things. So say parse.set application client ID. We're just going to copy all of that. And this should actually have all of your client ID all inside of that piece of code right there. So just copy and paste that right in there like so. This is going to hook our application up with the Parse database. And we also want to track the statistics around the application opening. So let's copy and paste our PF analytics and put that right in there. Now I'm sure this has something to do with Swift, so let's just go ahead and delete this PF analytics, as for some reason it was receiving an error. Now let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and right in here we're going to add a user to our application. So right up here we're going to import Parse right at the top of our viewcontroller.swift. Now right down here it's telling us that we want to have this inside of our view.did-load function, but I do not want to mess with this code right now. We're going to mess with this code in just a little bit. So now let's go back to our viewcontroller.swift, and I'm going to create a few functions. Now these functions will be called by the login or sign up buttons that we haven't created yet in our main.storyboard, but we will in just a minute. So go ahead down here, and we're just going to say func login, open parentheses, close parentheses, open curly bracket, enter, close curly bracket. And inside of this, we want to say var user pf user exclamation mark. So we have our pf user created, and then we need to edit this user. So say user.username will be equal to, and we'll say username text field dot text. So basically the username will be equal to the text that we have inside of, if we go back to our main.storyboard, it'll be equal to the text that we have inside of this text field. So let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and now we need to add the password. So say user.password will be equal to our password tf.text, or password text field.text. And lastly, we need user.email will be equal to our email tf.text. So we're taking all of the text, we're putting it into this PF user, and now we need to create an account from this PF user that we have created. So right down here we can see this user sign up in background with block. We'll actually just copy and paste all of this that we have right here. And there's actually an error that comes along with this, but I will show you how to fix that in just a second. So just paste that all right in there. As you can see, there's an error that comes along with this. It says cannot invoke sign up in background with an argument ties to bool ns error. Basically, this wants this ns error to be an optional, and that is going to fix it. It's a difference between a question mark and an exclamation mark, which is kind of weird. So now that we have this done, we need to head back over to our main.storyboard and hook this function up to a button that we will create. First of all, though, we need to set up a few constraints. So we need to right click or control click and drag from this email text field that we have, and just click and drag that, and we're going to have trailing space, bottom space, and we're going to center horizontally in the container so it's automatically going to be centered. And then we also want the leading space. Now that this is all hooked up, we can easily just right click or control click and drag from these other text fields, and we can say equal widths, and that'll keep the widths equal. And then we also need right click or control click and drag from the last text field, and we're going to say equal widths. And we can really do this with all these emails here. We'll say equal width, and equal width. Now we're getting all of these errors with the constraints right now. We'll fix that right now. Let's right click or control click and drag from this bottom text field to this email, and we're going to say vertical spacing. And then from this email to this password, we're going to say vertical spacing. Password to the password label, vertical spacing, vertical spacing, vertical spacing, no, not horizontal spacing, and vertical spacing. And then we lastly need top space to container margin. Now this is a bit better, but we need to also create heights for these. So we're going to right click or control click and drag from our email to our email, and we want to keep the same height. And we also need to center this. So we're going to center the X, center the X, center the X. A lot of constraints going on here. Center X, center X. And then we can go back to this username up here, and we're going to give that height. Go down to our password. We're going to give this some height. Go down to our email, and there we have it. Now all of our constraints are blue. Hopefully you were able to follow all that. I know it was a lot of constraints. Basically, you just need to make sure that all of these are blue, and just try your best. If you want to learn more about constraints, I will have that in the description down below. Now let's just click and drag a button onto our scene, and this will be our login and sign up button. So we're going to click and drag this button. I'm going to change the text of this to be log in, and then Command C, Command V, and then I'm going to put this up here in the top left corner, and this will be sign, and login should be 2 words. And now these have no constraints either, so we're going to right click or control click and drag. We're going to add the trailing space, and then we're going to add some vertical spacing and just save the width. Now we're going to go up here to our sign up. We're going to add some vertical spacing, leading space, and width. And now again, all your constraints should be blue. Now if we were to build and run this, you will see that this will all fit into our scene properly. So let's build and run this. And there you have it, our sign up, our login, our username, our password, our email. And this username got a bit bigger, but that's because it was trying to save a constraint that we created. So let's go ahead and delete that constraint that was messing everything up. So click on this bottom text field right here, and right down here we have a bottom layout guide.top, or it's basically the vertical spacing to the bottom, and we're just going to delete that. And now if we were to build and run this now, we should not get an error. And now you have our username, our password, and our email. Okay, enough about constraints. You guys are going to be creating your own app, so it really doesn't matter. Now let's head back over to our... Now we need to right click or control click and drag from our login button, and we're just going to add this connection type as an action. And the name of this, I'm just going to call this login btn action. Login button action. Connect. And then we're also going to have our sign up button action. So now let's right click or control click and drag from our sign up. And we're going to go to an action, and this will be sign up btn action. Connect. And now we have 2 actions that are going to be called for the login and sign up buttons. Now let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, close off our assistant editor. And now we want things to happen inside of this login button action. So first of all, this function login is actually not named properly. This should actually be called sign up. So let's just type that in right now. And now let's go into our sign up button action, and inside of this we can just say sign up, like so. And now it's going to call this function when this button is pressed. And this break should not be there. And now let's build and run this real quick. So we can just type in our username, which I'm going to put as Jared, and our password, I'm going to set mine as Davidson, worst password in the world, and our email will be whatever email at gmail.com. Now if we were to click sign up, now this var user pf user is the thing that's actually causing the unexpectedly found nil while unwrapping in an optional value. In order to fix this, we just need to say var user will be equal to a pf user, open parentheses, close parentheses. It's essentially the same thing, but we're just not using an optional. So now let's build and run this. And now let's type in our username, our password, and our email, and sign up. And now it gave us this error that said invalid email address, so we actually need to head back over here, and we should say at gmail.com. And then we can say sign up. And now if we were to go back to parse.com and head over to our core, we can see that a user has been created. with the username of blah blah blah. The password is hidden from the servers just to create security, and our email is blah blah blah. Now let's say we have this username and this email created, but we also want to log in. So in order for us to log in, let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift and let's go to our login button action. Now I'm creating new functions as to avoid reusing the same code over and over again in different sign up actions. So instead of putting all of the login stuff inside of the login button action, I'm going to put this in a separate function. So just type func login, open parentheses, close parentheses, open curly bracket, enter close curly bracket. And inside of this, we're essentially going to take this. We're going to take this first part right here inside of our sign up. We're creating a user, and then we're taking this user and seeing if it's valid with the Parse network. So now we need to say pfuser.login with username in background, and we're going to run a block. So this username we will say is our user.username, and our password will be equal to our user.password. And our block will be equal to an open curly bracket, enter close curly bracket. And inside of this block, we will need an open parentheses, close parentheses. And inside of these parentheses, we're going to say user colon pf user. We are going to create an optional user that's basically being created for the point of testing whether it's valid with Parse. And then right after this pf user question mark, enter comma. And we also want to make sure there's no errors. So say error colon ns error question mark. And then after this, we need to create an arrow. So dash arrow void in. Now I got a little mixed up right up here. This should actually just be our user name text field dot text, and this password should be our password text field dot text. And now we have no more errors. Perfect. Now what do we want to happen when there aren't any errors? What are we going to do? Well, this is essentially, it's logging us in, but we're not going to be able to see that. So let's go over here into our main.storyboard and let's click and drag a view controller on here. And this will be your main view controller that you go on to right after people log in. So right inside over here, we're going to click on our view controller, head over to the class identifier right here. The identity inspector, and inside of here we want to change the storyboard ID equal to whatever we want. I'm going to call this the main VC or main view controller, and we're going to be able to move to this view controller after we get things correct in our viewcontroller.swift. So now let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and inside of here we want to say if error equals nil, essentially meaning that there's no errors. Open curly bracket, enter close curly bracket. We want to asynchronously dispatch. So dispatch underscore async q, dispatch q underscore t, this one right down here. So tab that all in. This basically means it's going to call whatever is put inside of this block right here. It's going to call that as soon as possible, meaning it's not going to happen immediately, but it's going to happen as soon as everything's been verified. So inside of this first block right here, we need to say dispatch underscore get main queue, and then after that we can actually just close this off and then say open curly bracket, enter close curly bracket. Now whatever we put inside of this dispatch async will be called as soon as the error equals nil, meaning that your user is correct and has been verified with Parse. Now in order to move over to this view controller that we just created, we need to say var storyboard will be equal to a UI storyboard, open parentheses, with the name of main, as that is the name of our storyboard that we have right over here. It is basically the name of this part right here that says main.storyboard with the bundle, and we're just going to set this equal to nil, as we really don't want to worry about the bundle that it's stored in. And now down here we want to create the view controller that we are going to move to. So we need to say var main vc colon UI view controller equals, and this will be our storyboard. So storyboard.instantiate view controller with identifier, and this identifier will be whatever the storyboard ID that we created in our main.storyboard. So let's just click over here inside of our main.storyboard over to our view controller, and again the storyboard ID was main VC. So we can head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and inside of here the name of our view controller will be main VC. And now right now it doesn't know that this is going to be a view controller, so we need to say as a UI view controller. So we're casting this as a UI view controller. And now we need to present this view controller that we just created. So we're just going to say self.present view controller, and we're going to present this view controller that we created. So just type in main VC, animated, set that to true, completion equals nil, unless you want a completion, but I'm not going to worry about it. Now outside of this if statement where it says there are no errors, we want to say an else statement as well. Basically, this is whatever is going to be called when, say if they can't find that specific user. This is where you would notify the user that either your password's been typed in wrong or anything like that. So we need to go down here to our else statement. I'm not going to worry about any of the password getting wrong, anything like that. I'm just going to create an nslog and say wrong. Basically, us as programmers are going to be the only one that knows whether they typed it in wrong or not, so you need to actually create a label or something that shows up onto your main view controller, see if right here, and I enter it in wrong. You want to notify the user that it got wrong, so that they won't be frustrated when they notice that they're not logging in. And lastly, we need to add this login function into our login button action. So just say login, open parentheses, close parentheses, enter, build, run, and there you have it. Now we have our sign up, so I can easily say sign up as Jared, password will be Davidson, and our email, I will just make this architap@gmail.com. We sign up, and then now if we head back over to our core data, we can reload the data, and there you have it. My username is Jared, architap@gmail.com. It doesn't tell me the password. Now if we were to head back over here, we can say login, and it will present the second view controller that we created. Also, just a quick note, if you go to the password right here and you type in, you'll see that your password is shown. And that is not the proper way to do things. You need to head back over to your main.storyboard, click on your password UI text field here, head over to your attributes inspector, and we want to say secure text entry. And now if we were to build and run this, when we type into the password, it's going to show up as dots. That's it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more tutorials like this from me in the future, be sure to subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, be sure to leave that down in the comment section down below, as I will try to get them to the best of my ability. But anyway, thank you again, and I will see you in the next one.